So, about a century ago, a sociologist named Mildred Parton studied the play of children, and she really believed that play is an intrinsic action of children. Children love to play, and play is really the vehicle that children use to explore and learn about their environment. She described five specific stages of play, and she believed that children gradually advanced or move through those stages as they age. However, later research showed that children can actually be involved in the different types of play at any age, not necessarily the same way that Parton described. So here are the five typical types of children play. Children can be seen playing in what is called solitary play, and that is when the child is playing by himself, unfazed by anyone else playing in the same center or in the same room. So they are preoccupied with their own toys, with their own exploration, and they're not really socializing with anyone else. Another type of play is what she called the onlooker play. And this is not really a type of play, but the child is watching other children play. He's not being involved in any of the play, not interacting with any of the play, but he is just watching the other children play. Parallel play is exactly what it sounds like. Two children are sitting parallel to each other. Each one of them is engaged in his own exploration. They might be engaged in the same activity. They're both drawing, or they're both painting, or they're both building, but they are not sharing any toys between themselves. So each one of them is strictly involved in what they are working with, but they are sitting next to each other. So kind of the difference between solitary and parallel is that solitary involves one child, parallel involves two children or maybe multiple children. Each one of them is involved in his own project or work. Associative play is similar to parallel play. However, children can actually share the toys that they are working with. So this is a perfect example. You know, they're both sharing the blocks and they're both building, but each one of them has his own project to complete, their own tower to build. But they might be asking each other, you know, can you hand me that yellow block, or can I use your green block? Or if they were painting or coloring, you know, can I use the red crayon, or can I use the cutter if they were on the Play-Doh table? So there is an interaction, there is an exchange of toys, but each of them is involved in his own product. The final stage is what she called a cooperative play. And she believed that this is usually the time of typical early childhood years, typical preschool years, is that children are more cooperatively engaged in producing one product. So they're all playing a game together. They're all building a puzzle. They're all building a tower, or playing together, you know, a game of hide and seek, or putting together a pretend play at a doctor's office. Or so that they're all cooperatively, with each one of them having a role or a job, and together they produce one final product. So these are the five different types of play. Unoccupied is another type that Mildred did not necessarily discuss, but it's more of the child that is not really engaged or socialized, and they're preoccupied with their own selves. So they are not, they're unoccupied with other children or with play. Social play involves two other types and interaction with children. One of them is a little bit more aggressive than the other. We call it rough and tumble. Rough and tumble is that a type of rough housing that some children engage in, or some adults with their children engage in. It mimics aggressive wrestling or chasing or hitting, but it is not intended to harm. And the way you can tell that it is not intended for harm is with that playful face or that smile, that gestures that is just pretend and they're just playing. It's common mostly amongst male children than female. On the other hand, sociodramatic play is more common amongst females than it is amongst boys. However, both genders tend to engage in it. Sociodramatic play is when they play pretend, when they're put on costumes or try to become the role of the adult in their life, so they can pretend to be a mommy or pretend to be a doctor or pretend to be a fireman or pretend to be a superhero if they watch TV, and or scenes or princesses or any of those pretend roles that they imagine and try to kind of experiment with in their own little scenarios. Now, as children learn to socialize and work on their emotional regulation and work on how does another person feel, so with the evolvement of theory of mind, socializing with other children, comes a new expression, and that is pro-social behavior. Pro-social behavior is all of those actions that children engage in that show that they are kind and they are nice. And pro-social behavior needs a foundation, and that foundation is the concept of empathy. Now, empathy does not happen by itself. Empathy evolves as children start to understand the feelings of others. Remember, children are egocentric, so by nature they don't really see other people until they cognitively reach that milestone of theory of mind. So theory of mind, if you guys remember from last chapter, is when the child realizes that the other person in front of them has a different feeling than they are feeling, or they have a different thought than what they think. So when they get to that point, they start to understand the concept of empathy, and that is an understanding of other people's feelings. So they might empathize with another child who might be hurt, and they can go and try to ask them, are you okay? Or they might go to the teacher and say so and so is sad or is crying. So that pro-social behavior develops from having empathy, and empathy develops from having theory of mind. Now, on the other side, you might also experience children who have what we call antipathy. And antipathy develops because children harbor a dislike or mean attributes that makes other children dislike them or not want to play with them. And the more antipathy, the more negative behavior they have, and they develop what we call antisocial behavior. Antisocial behavior is known as aggression, and aggression during the preschool years can be in different levels. It starts out with just the simple instrumental aggression, when a child yanks another toy from another child, or they might take somebody else's crayon or somebody else's turn. And instrumental aggression is very common in the toddler years, when the child is really thinking more egocentrically, thinking of only themselves. So what mine is mine and what's yours is mine. So with that comes a lot of instrumental aggression. Now, built on instrumental aggression is going to be reactive aggression. So the child took the toy of another child, and then the other child reacts to that by hitting them or yanking the toy again, and that conflict, verbal or physical, is a reaction to the aggression, the first aggression, the instrumental aggression. Now, this is notorious around toddlers and also around 3-year-olds, because they're still working on their impulse control, they're still working on their emotional regulation, and of course, they're also thinking about theory of mind. Now, theory of mind involves that they understand the concept of he didn't mean to, or he knocked your tower by accident. So whether the person is intentionally doing it or accidentally, they still do not understand that, and therefore they might react to the aggression without taking a moment to think about it. So here's where the adult comes in the story, when they come and help the children first name the feeling, understand what happened, let them know that he didn't really mean to knock your tower, or he accidentally tripped and hit your tower, and therefore you help them see the other person's point of view. But again, instrumental aggression, reactive aggression, even though they are very common in the first 2 years of life and the early childhood, so around the 3-year-olds, it gets better around 4. And this is when we start to get into what we call relational aggression. This is the non-physical acts that most preschoolers are really good at when they try to exclude someone and reject someone, socially rejecting them by saying, you're not coming to my party, or you're not my friend anymore, or we don't like you. So that is intended to really destroy somebody else's or the other child's self-esteem or feelings of belonging. And that is very common around the preschool years, specifically with girls. Bullying, believe it or not, is also a type of aggression that we can discuss in the preschool years. And the most successful way to curb bullying in adolescence is to actually address it in preschool. So those antisocial behaviors or actions that the child might do, whether it was physical or verbal, so any of those that are done repeatedly, and this is the key word in bullying, repeated physical or verbal attacks for no reason, is a form of bullying. And preschoolers can bully. They can have tendencies of antisocial behavior, repetitive antisocial behavior, and they need to be addressed. They need to be addressed at the level of the bully and at the victim's level. So the victim needs to learn really early on in the preschool years to speak up, to have a safe person to tell. So the parent is critical. The caregiver, the mother, the teacher are all critical in listening to the child or helping the child talk about what had happened at school today. And of course, without shaming them, without letting them feel that it was their fault that they didn't stand up or they didn't react to the aggression of the other child, but rather that they did the right thing and that they need help and they can get help. So helping children stand up early on and helping children who are expressing some tendencies of antisocial behavior find other ways to express their anger or their feelings is what social and emotional regulation is all about.